Today we are going to talk about what are the requirements before listing your home for a real estate agent or a buyer that's looking to buy a home with a VA loan. Hello, this is David Zai with the Zai Mortgage Team. I live in the backyard of the biggest military base in the world. So we get a lot of VA loans and we get a lot of calls from real estate agents saying, I don't know why, but this house will not qualify for VA. But they may not be looking at it like we're looking at it with the guidelines right in front of us, right? Or you may be using your VA loan in an area that's not as populated, so very few VA loans. So I did a loan in Kansas, middle America, right? You know, there weren't a lot of VA or veterans that were there, and they just didn't know anything about VA loans. So they were just scared as the listing agent and the sales agent. Today, I'm here to just tell you basically almost all of the guidelines that are required to make sure that your home that you are listing or the home that you want to buy is going to be eligible for a VA loan. So the number one rule that you need to know is safety, sanitary, and structurally sound. That's the biggest thing, okay? The second biggest thing that we see on VA appraisals that come back is that the handrails are not installed when there are 3 or more steps or risers. Next thing is tripping hazards have to be remediated or remedied. Buckling and concrete and things like that have to be taken care of. If there is 25% or more of non-residential use, then we have to know about that, and that may not qualify for a VA loan. You may want to look at conventional at that time if it's a mixed-use property. Mechanical systems have to be adequate and working, especially your heating system. It has to maintain a heating temperature of 50 degrees in areas where there's plumbing. Wood stove cannot be the only heat source, okay? If there's a solar system for water, the space must have reliable backup systems for your water because you need water, right? The roof has to have at least 2 years remaining on it, and it cannot be more than 3 layers of shingles on the roof. A lot of times when I replace my roofs, I'm gonna have the contractor go over there and take off all the shingles before we do anything. The crawl space has to have adequate access. It has to be clear of all debris and properly vented. This is a big deal, and there must not be excessive dampness or puddling of water in the crawl space. And that's a big deal. You probably, like, I grew up in a house. Actually, my first 2 houses in life had excessive dampness. So there were a lot of spiders and things like that down there, and it attracted other rodents as well. And then, you know, my second house had a vent well where, you know, because of the settling on the house, water used to settle down there, so a vent well had to be built for us to pump out the water with a sump pump. The laundry and storage, if you're buying a 2 to 4 unit, it can be shared, but you got to have adequate storage and laundry space, okay? The rear yard or rear space of the house, you have to have access to it. If there are any streets that are private, you've got to have an easement or some sort of maintenance agreement already drawn up on the property. The streets have to be eligible for or usable in all weather type conditions. If you have something that's mud, you know, if it rains a lot, you know, you may get stuck, and that's not good, you know. We have to make sure that you can still pay for your mortgage. The living units must each have their own access, okay? You gotta have some sort of access to it. You can't walk through someone else's unit to get to yours. You gotta have an exterior access for it. The spaces between the buildings, you gotta be able to, you know, get to the exterior walls to work on them. Termite inspection is required on it, and treatment is required if it is necessary for treatment, if there's live termites. Typically the lots, I don't see this really talked about a lot, but the lots, you know, it must drain away from the dwelling. So if water gets near the house, it's got to be, like, you know, properly sloped away from the house. Anything that has, you know, chipping paint, that's definitely a big deal. Anything that's built prior to 78 has to have some sort of defective paint, interior and exterior, remediated. If you are located within high pressure gas or petroleum access or easements or high voltage, you got to be at least 220 yards away. And, you know, I have approached this subject more than a couple times. We got to make sure that if you're near one of those high voltages, it will not fall directly on your house. You got to have connection to, like, public sewer or disposal systems is only a requirement if it's part of the building permits or health authority. You can have private water, but it must be tested prior to you moving into the house. Any water treatment systems are okay, only if public water is not available. And then finally, shared wells are adequate as well, but there has to be some sort of maintenance or well maintenance agreement. I've gone through a lot on this VA loan scenario, and there are a lot of loan officers out there. There are over 3 million now, right? With NMLS numbers at least. And then there are more out there that don't have licenses that work at federally chartered banks. And it's really important that you find someone that works on these loans all the time. And I thank you for your service to the country, number one, and because of that, I'd like to tell you wholesale lending is definitely the way to go. It's going to save you money as a veteran, and I'd love to help you out. It would definitely be an honor to help you out. I can be reached at 757-478-8493, and this is David Zai with the Zai Mortgage Team. Bye.